Radio.
Oh, relax radio.
Now, we're going to start again.
Okay.
Welcome. I want to introduce myself again. My name is Jazzy, and today is my first day doing the streaming radio. I want to introduce you to my first guest, whose name is Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. He is in charge of the leadership program for African and Caribbean young people. And today he's going to come in and tell me more about what he does and what he stands for. Welcome, Ubuntu.
Greetings, give thanks, and thank you for inviting me to be here, Godess Jazzy. It's an honor and a pleasure. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So tell me about where it all started.
Where it all started?
Yeah. And explain to the viewers and the listeners what it is actually you do as well. Sorry.
Well, it's really, really kind of interesting. I started working with young people many, many years ago. And one of the things, as growing up as a young man, I realized that when it came to a lot of our young people from the African Caribbean community, you would find that we were being excluded from school. We were having issues in terms of our self-esteem and confidence. Yeah. And you'd find that we were having a lot of issues. But those issues weren't just coming from 10, 15 years ago in working with young people. That has been going on for quite a long time within this country, and especially in the borough that I come from in Lewisham.
You had a man, Lewisham.
Yes. There was a man by the name of Bernard Cord, who had written a book many years ago about how the education system makes the African Caribbean child educationally subnormal. And from those times, you know, you had people like Professor Gus John and different various people who were challenging the education system in terms of the education of young African Caribbean children. And so bringing it kind of up to date, you will find that there's a lot of issues in our community in relation to our African Caribbean children. And growing up as a small child, give thanks to my country of origin, which is where my parents came from, which is Jamaica. And growing up as a young child, having an older brother who came from Jamaica, and he came from Jamaica as a 13, 14-year-old boy, and I was a little young baby. I was influenced very heavily by the music that he brought with him. So when he came from Jamaica, he brought You Roy, I Roy, you name all those old time Jamaican artists that were singing particular things. And the particular songs that they were singing as a child, I was always thinking, why them man saying them things? Because I'm born here in Britain, in England. Being born here, yes, parents played their music at home and things like that. But when my brother came with all this kind of roots and culture kind of music, and I'm thinking, why them man saying them things? And, you know, it took time to kind of really get to grips with some of those things. And for example, growing up and listening to songs when I was going out raving and things like that, and exposed to people like Burning Spear and all those culture, the Ethiopians, all of those kind of roots and culture groups that were singing particular songs. And, you know, you would hear things like Christopher Columbus is a damn blasted liar. And when you hear them kind of songs as a youngster, I used to think, Christopher Columbus is a damn blasted liar.
Did you used to sing it out loud? I used to sing it out loud, not understand it.
If I would sing, if I sing it, everybody might run off. So I don't want to really sing it. But it just really basically
But I
says.
used to sing it. Did you used to sing it out loud when you were
No, I
younger,
never
but
used
never
to sing it
understood
out
it?
loud.
You never did?
Yes. Well, I tell you the honest truth, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, go on.
When that tune came on in a dance, everybody was singing it. Everybody
Yes.
was singing it. We were singing to the chorus line, Christopher Columbus is a damn blasted liar. And
But I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what it meant. I just sang it, you know?
I think a lot of us just sang it and never really looked behind it because, you know, we were too busy as young people, rub up on all kind of thing there. And we get into the dance up with one another and more interested in dancing with the woman and dancing with the man than necessarily what is the man telling you in the tune. So
yes, indeed.
Those kind of things really fascinated me, and it led me to kind of really kind of do some research into it and look at what they was talking about. But when I say what they were talking about, the first thing I used to have to do is start where I was coming from. And as a child, I grew up listening to my parents talk about Jamaica, back home, where they come from. And when they talk about back home, and, you know, my dad used to say, you know, up in a maroon town where them come from and all them kind of things. And I'm thinking as a child, Maroon Town? What's that?
What does it mean? Yeah.
What does that mean? So, you know, you hear things as a child, but you don't really understand it. But as I was getting older, I'm questioning what's going on in the country in which I live, because I grew up in a time where you had a lot of kind of issues in relation to National Front.
And,
Yes. And I went to school where, you know, you had people who were members of the National Front as a child. And if you didn't know how to fight and defend yourself, dog, nyam yourself
and run fast.
And run fast.
I used to run fast at New Cross, man. I used to run fast and lock the door. You remember you locked the door? I used to bolt it down Clifton Rise and bolt the door, honestly.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
So those times were frightening times. But, you know, we were a lot more cohesive as a community them time, because you had to learn to stick together, you know, because if you didn't stick together, you had to make sure you were walking in 2s and 3s and 4s, because that way
absolutely
you felt safer. But you know, growing up thinking to yourself, you know, people calling you black this, black that, your wall, all of these kind of things. Thinking, you know, what is it that black people have done so bad that people want to call you these kind of names? And as a child,
you was inquisitive at a young age. You was that inquisitive to find out what these words meant.
Very, very much so. You know, why is it that we're being attacked? Why is it that we're being called all these different kind of names? And, you know, being born here, yes, you hear about your Caribbean roots where your parents come from, but they don't necessarily know how to tell you the historical narrative around where they come from as a people from the Caribbean. And you think to yourself, boy, you know, we're being hounded and disrespected, but you know, at the same time, you had to learn to fight, because if you didn't learn to fight and defend yourself, you could find yourself in a big problem. And it's funny, you know, sister Godess Jazzy, because you bring me back to a time when I remember myself also in primary school.
Tell me about it.
When we was in primary school, and I never forget, there used to be this young white child. His name was Richard Ficklin, and he used to wear, he used to wear some thick glasses, and his eyes were massive inside the glasses, and we used to laugh all the time about how he looked strange. But the funny thing was that when we was in class, he could answer every question. He could answer.
There was always one person. like that. There was always one. Yeah.
And whilst he could answer all the questions, I'm thinking, well, why can't I answer any of these questions? Not
Man, I
understanding
feel it.
that
Yeah.
he was a European child while I was an African child. So
Yes.
him growing up and being born here and being British, he would understand his own historical narrative, even as simple as it might have been, to be able to answer
Yeah.
questions that would not be in my mind at all. And so it led me to think, you know, is there something wrong with us? Why we can't answer those kind of questions that they're posing in school? And it's as time has gone on, and as I said, growing up from primary school, going to secondary school, in the environment where you're hearing people who are part of the National Front calling you all these different kind of names, and you're thinking to yourself, you know, why is it that we're so looked on and spoken of in these kind of terms, and why do people just want to beat you up, jump out of vans and all of those kind of things and beat you up in Lewisham? Because those things happen. It was real. And so, you know, as I said, listening to your parents as you're going up, you know, they're telling you, say, me send you go to school for learn. Me not send you go to school for go get no problem with people. But little they know, say that you're having to defend
the
yourself.
Is coming to you. Yeah.
It's coming to me. So, you know, didn't really understand it too tough. But as I said, I'm hearing my parents talk about the, you know, back home and where they come from. And you hear them, my dad would talk about the maroon them. And I'd be thinking, maroon? Who are they? What's that? And I remember specifically, Sister Jazzy, we went down to an uncle of mine's house down in New Cross on the Love Lynch Close. And,
oh my gosh. I know it well. I used to live there. I used to live in Deptford.
Yeah. You know, the Love Lynch Close. I used to go down there because my dad used to give me the partner money to carry down to my uncle's house. And there were times when I used to have to go down there to take the partner money. You would see Millwall football team having a football match, and you used to see hundreds of white people walking down to go to a football match, and that was quite frightening because Millwall at that time was a very frightening place. It was, especially with the environment, as I said earlier on, that you were having to live in. But going back to my uncle, whose name was Uncle Roy, and I used to go down to Uncle Roy's house, and I remember one day specifically when we went down to my Uncle Roy's house. That was my brothers and my dad and my mum. He took us down. We went to go and visit my Uncle Roy and his wife and children. And my dad, when we go in there, my dad said, you know, want to sit down in the chair and keep on yourself quiet. And you used to have to sit in the chair like how we're in the chair now, and you just keep like quiet.
You couldn't sleep.
Our auntie used to bake enough cake and them kind of things for us when we were younger. So, you know, you get cake and drink and you're just happy, you know. We were just happy.
Yeah.
But I remember then one day specifically, my mum and my dad was talking, and my Uncle Roy and his wife were talking about Haile Selassie. And when they were talking about Haile Selassie, I remember my Uncle Roy saying that he was the emperor of Ethiopia. And my mum was saying, yes, but him used to take the people them food and feed him lion them. But you know, you're young, so you don't understand it fully in what is being said. But it's stuck in my mind. An emperor of Ethiopia, but you know, you let these things slide and pass. But I give thanks for the 70s when Rastafari exploded onto the consciousness of our mind.
Yes.
And as I say, roots and culture music was being played, was coming out, and you're hearing these things, and you know, you're just saying to yourself, boy, Rasta. Cause when we saw Rasta with locks and them thing there, boy, we was frightened. We never seen that in our life. And you're thinking,
exactly. And the thing is, I never liked it. I was totally scared of a Rasta man. Honestly. And look now.
Well, there you go. But what I did love about the Rasta man them, because you know, we started to have youth clubs and things like that in the area. So a lot of youth clubs and things like that we would go to, and you'd see enough of the dread them that was down there.
Yeah.
And anytime you was walking the street, one of the things I always remember when you see some of the Rasta man them, they was always saying to me, "What good youth."
Yeah.
What good. And
everyone was a brother and sister back then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone was a brother and sister, an auntie and an uncle, no matter who, you know.
Absolutely. And the positiveness out of the engagement with many Rastafarians that I knew at that time, it was always positive. And there was always talking about Africa and these kind of things. And you're thinking, Africa? And you're hearing all of these things. And for me, as I said, it's not that I wasn't a man in the dance and never got my little shubeen and all them kind of thing as a little youngster and go to my little youth and community youth clubs. I went to them, whether it was St. Mary's, St. Andrews, you know, Lewisham Boys Club, all of those kind of clubs.
What about Moonshot? Did you ever go Moonshot?
Moonshot. I used to be there, Moonshot. I used to play football for Moonshot football team. At those times in my early years. And so, you know, it was just a fascinating time in terms of listening to the music. As I said, it was quite influential. And what that then kind of led me to do as I started to get older is start to look into people like His Imperial Majesty. And when I started to read about Ethiopia, His Imperial Majesty, and that he was the 225th emperor of Ethiopia, I said, what?
Wow.
The 225th emperor. So there were 224 before him. I said, wow. That is something that I wanted to find out more about. And I could understand a lot more as I started to read about the Ethiopian history, who His Imperial Majesty was, how long his dynasty lasted and reigned, and where he was coming from in terms of his historical narrative. Now that started to give me a very much different understanding of myself as a young Black child, because now I'm seeing that, you know, we've got people who represent we, and that fact, you know, helped me to understand certain things, and then learning
where did you go to find this information from, Ubuntu? Where did you look to seek this research? How did you start?
A lot of it, I always say, Sister Jazzy, one of the things for me is that one of the first things that gave us information was our music. Yeah. Music started to become my newspaper, because when you listen to music, it's telling you wagwan. So, you know, whether it was hearing about trench tone, whether it was, you know, you might hear something like from Trench Town to Jonestown to T Valley, them a kill them black brother. Them a kill them.
So you listened with intent. You listened with intent with the music, and that made you go very forward.
So you know, growing up and coming up into the 80s and things like that was also a very interesting time, because then you kind of start to explore yourself as a 17, 18-year-old. You then start, you had things like the New Cross Fire that, you know, killed many of those 14 young children. 14 dead and nothing said. What we're going to do. So I remember all of those things where you had the Black People's Day of Action, and you had the whole of the Black people then marching from down by New Cross, going up into the city of London. So, you know, these things were vivid in your mind, vivid in your mind. And in terms of where I started to get my information, you started to have Black bookshops that started to pop up here and there. And, you know, I would make a conscious decision to go to some of those Black bookshops and go and find out about, you know, what is it that it is about us as a people. And once I started to do that, yeah, my mind started to expand. I started to understand a lot more about where we were coming from, and it made me proud to be a Black man. And to know where I was coming from. So it is in that vein that I went on to even have a little stall myself in Lewisham, where I was selling books and things like that. So, you know, I knew where to go and get them, and then I would come down into Lewisham and I'd have a stall on the Lewisham back market. In Lewisham.
Yeah, of course, the Black market, which is gone now, I think.
It's gone now, but you know, I used to be out there and sell books and things like that, and talk about us in a positive way, and connect with the community in which I lived. And there was so much richness in our community where we lived that, you know, whether you want to talk about some of the sound systems that used to be down here that were really kind of beautiful. You had a sound system by the name of Prophecy. You had a sound system named Jaman. You had Shaka, you know, the mighty Shaka, who used to, so, you know, the music was there, and you know, it was giving us something to kind of feel good about ourselves. Really was giving us something good. And so in being able to kind of come through that era, and then having a bookshop and things like that, selling books and things like that, that really kind of made me really feel good about sharing that kind of information. But when you try to start sharing that information, even some of your own people think, say, boy, him gone mad. Him a talk about all this and that, and the boy I lost, the boy I lose him.
Like this? Why are we like this, Ubuntu? Why are we like this? You know? Why? I just need to know, why are we like this? Why can't we be proud of you doing something, me doing something, someone? Why can't it be a chain reaction like that? I'll never understand.
Well, you see, beloved, what it is that when you're coming under colonial rule, and you have to start understanding that the fact you live in England, why is it that we live in England? Why do we talk English? Where did we get it from? How did we get it? And when you start to look at the historical narrative, how England played a role in shaping the world and their involvement in what we now call the transatlantic slave trade. And the fact that they came to Africa and then kidnapped people based on Europeans coming out of a very rough and savage condition in terms of how they were developed in Europe at that time. And so when you have people like Sir Francis Drake and John Hawkins, who left from Deptford and sailed out from there to travel out to Africa and start to get themselves involved in the kidnapping and enslavement of our people and transporting us around the world. And so hence the reason why my parents would have come from Jamaica, because, you know, the slave traders who got involved in the slave trade, and we're talking about England specifically right now, because Spain and Portugal were the first to be involved in enslaving African people, and Britain got into it a little bit later and really took it over on another level. And so
Ubuntu, hold it there, my dear. We're just going to go on a quick break just to let the news come through. Then I'm going to come back. Yeah. So have a bit of a drink or something, and I'll be back. Yeah.
May I have my cup? May I have my something already?
Welcome back. Thank you, Ubuntu.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know what? Before we continue, I just want to know if you remember the 50p machine. It just came back to me from the 80s. Remember?
I don't just remember the 50p machine. I remember the times when we used to have to go out as young people to the petrol station to go buy paraffin.
Yeah. Oh, so you're way back. Okay.
Don't put me too far back, beloved.
No, I won't. Oh dear. Oh, it's so nice to reconnect and remember, you know. Oh, it's just beautiful. Well, so, you know, as you were saying,
it's a good thing to remember and never forget where you're coming from. So, you know, in terms of understanding why we talk English and speak the English language, that was because of our ancestors being kidnapped from Africa, brought to the Caribbean, and kept there, which for me was a plantation. In my understanding now, in how things have evolved, you know, and bringing us there and working us in order to produce goods for the Western European societies, you know, such as sugar and all of those kind of things that came out of the Caribbean islands, because these people, sugar was what you call oil now. Oil is the big thing in the world now, but back those times, sugar was the thing. But when I started to understand about how the back-breaking work that our ancestors did in order to produce goods for the Western economy, that is how they then forced us to speak their language. And as time went on, you know, you're talking about the brutalization and the mistreatment of a people. You know, you're talking about raping, pillaging, all kind of murdering. You know, that's why you can go down to Jamaica now and you can find some of those same historical places where they used to have us in garrisons and things like that, where they used to, you know, abuse the women, abuse the men. But, you know, they didn't sit down and just take the abuse. I mean, they fought back, you know. They did fight back, but we were conquered. You know, we were conquered. Make no bones about that. We were conquered as a people. And by being conquered, you know, we came under what you call, you know, English domination. And so as time developed and Europe and Britain developed, because of the whole transatlantic slave trade and the enslavement of Africans, that then fueled what you call the Industrial Revolution. And that fueling of the Industrial Revolution really set Britain on a trajectory to the development to where you see it is now. But in that question that you asked, you know, about you know, who we are and why we speak English, it's because of what Europeans, Britain had done to us.
You know, I never knew that. Growing up, I never knew that. That's why I needed you today, Ubuntu, and I'm going to need you for a long time because I didn't know that. That's the truth. You know, I put my hands up. I did not know that one bit. Believe me.
Well, beloved, you know, and that's the beautiful thing. That's the starting place. When you can say, I don't know, then that's the position to start to get to know. And for me, it's just the same thing. There was many things I didn't know as a child, but growing up, you know, my curiosity forced me to question and ask, you know, who we are and where we're coming from. So in terms of understanding the historical narrative around Jamaica specifically, which I'm talking about now, because, you know, the enslavement of Africans was spread right across those Caribbean islands. And, you know, we were caught up also because of what Britain was having as wars and fights against Spain and France and all of those kind of things. They were fighting their one another for dominance. And that's where we have to understand that the fight that they were having with their one another for dominance led us to be caught underneath their rule. So that's why you'll find some people speak French. You got black French speaking people. You got black people.
Portuguese,
all of these different languages. But this was all based on what Europeans were doing with each other for dominance. And so because those things amongst themselves were leading towards dominance, then you will find that everybody came under the rule of either the French, the Spanish, the British. And so when you start talking about the English side of it, which we can talk about, hence the reason why, you know, with the development of Britain and, you know, the world wars that came out. And when I say the world wars were European wars amongst themselves. We just got caught up in it. That's all that happened. And that is why Britain came out of those kind of things being where it is today to a large degree. And so hence our parents coming here from these wars that were fought between the Europeans, especially when you talk about the Second World War in terms of, you know, what Hitler was trying to do in playing his role in wanting to conquer Britain. You know, with the destruction of Britain based on what Hitler was doing, you know, our parents or our great-grandparents, some of them fought in those First and Second World Wars, which were about Europeans fighting amongst themselves. But because we came under their domination and rule, we then ended up having to fight in those kind of wars. And in fighting those kind of wars, hence why you can say, let's jump to the time after Britain, Germany is defeated. Then you can talk about the Windrush generation. And then when you talk about the Windrush generation, hence the reason why we're born here now. And when we're born here now, we've come into what you call the education system. And the education system is going to educate you based on the premise that you're in England. And so in order to progress and succeed and grow, you are having to learn what their historical narrative is, but you don't learn about what your historical narrative is. And so when you're always being taught England did this, England did that, and everything is England, 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 you don't believe that black people ever did anything.
Exactly. So, I didn't know anything until Do you know when I really realized about that and racism? When I watched Roots at school. I first watched Roots, the film Roots. I think there were 3 black children in the whole of the school. I was one of them and 2 guys. But because we were born here, there's a word that I like to use, and it's not a swear word, but it's called bastardized.
Yes.
You know, we've been bastardized with so much that when I realized about racism is when I watched that film and came back to school, and I totally turned against everybody in the school. I was vexed. I was like this. I was like that. I was so upset, you know, because I never knew that extent of slavery happened. I never knew because I was born here, you know,
well,
and I was never told.
Beloved, when you bring up that movie Roots, I remember well. And that's why I'm glad we're having the conversation in the way that we're having it, because I remember when that movie Roots and it was advertised on TV.
Yes.
My brothers and my mum, we all thought, what? Them going to have something on the TV and it's showing black people.
Black.
And
yeah,
I never forgot, all of us was in the front room, sitting down, waiting for the movie, this show to start. And when we saw what they did to us, David, well, it was a terrible time for people after that, because we actually went out and
it's just how we woke up, isn't it? Don't you think we kind of woke up? I felt like I woke up at a young age for a little bit, you know?
Yeah, beloved.
I had an awakening.
It was an awakening for many of us.
Yeah.
And at that time, because that movie caused a lot of problem in this country.
Yeah.
It caused a lot of problems in the country, because that movie was shown in the late 70s.
70s, that's right, yeah.
It was shown in the late 70s, and they never put it back on national TV again after that.
You're right, you're very right. None at all.
They didn't put it back on national TV because it caused a lot of problems. And coming from the late 70s, coming into the 80s, and the struggles that we were having. And as I mentioned earlier on, you talk about New Crossfire happening. And there was a whole culmination of things, the death of Cynthia Jarrett and Cherry Gross and all of those kind of things. So it led to coming right through the 70s, right into the 80s, pure uprisings.
That's the word.
Because, we as young people had enough. We'd had enough. Black people had enough. Why should we be going through these things? And yet at the end of the day, we've never done nobody no wrong.
Yes, that's the thing about it. We did it as people. We never done no one, nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing. Yeah.
No, we didn't go around and do these things to anybody. So why would we experiencing these things? And so, give thanks that, that movie Roots was a real game changer for me.
God, it really was. Really was.
Certainly threw me into understanding more about my African history and where we're coming from and the issues that we faced. And so, one of the books that I got in my very early age, I still have it. That's one of the books.
Oh my gosh.
100 Amazing Facts About the Negro. And, when you started to learn about the different kind of Black people who had contributed great things to world civilization, then it started to put the puzzle together, and then you could start to see things more clearly. And when you started,
can I ask you something, Ubuntu? Sorry to cut you, but from just going back to the Roots film, did you think you felt traumatized? I'm trying to think now within myself. I think I might have suffered from trauma from my school age of watching that film. It never came out of my head.
Well, it never came out of my head. It did traumatize many of us because, we never knew. We never knew what our ancestors went through. We never knew that they beat and murdered our ancestors in that kind of way. And so, it gave us a whole different look on things. I mean, that's why I say when you go back to people like Burning Spear, and you will hear them sing song, "Do you remember the days of slavery?" And them kind of songs.
And again, I used to just sing it out loud without understanding it, you know? I used to sing it out loud, but not understanding the words.
Yes. And so, you know, when you hear those kind of songs coming out from Burning Spear, Culture, and all these different, you start to really understand. So being born here and then seeing the fighting that we're having to do, you recognize that it's a continuum. It's not something that was in the past. It's a continuum.
It's still
that's
happening.
Right in the present. So it's not about saying, oh, that's back then. That's back then. It's still going on right now.
Still going on now, yeah. Wow.
Still going on right now. And so that's why I said my interest started to spread, you know, by reading books like this and understanding 100
Where can you find this book, Ubuntu? Where can you find this book?
You can go up to places like Finsbury Park. You've got a bookshop up there called Head Start. We used to have a man by the name of Papa Kai. He used to sell, bring black books into the country and sell black books. So, you know, I used to go and buy my books from him and Head Start. And you know, many other people that used to sell books. There was a brother named Steve Henry. He had a black bookshop that we used to go to, and we would get books and sit down and read and empower our mind to understand where we fit in the whole world scheme of things. What have we contributed to the development of the Western world and civilization and the inventions and all the different things that we've done to help society become what it is. But unfortunately, with some of these great inventions and things like that we have brought in every field, whether it's science, technology, maths, physics, biology, chemistry, archaeology.
Ubuntu, I'm so sorry. That was our break. I have to remember breaks coming through, but you know, please forgive me.
No, man, that's absolutely beautiful.
I want to ask you something.
Ask me.
I've got 2 questions that a guest has posed me to ask you. Yeah.
Okay.
So, the first question is: knowing what you know about life through information and experience, what would you tell your younger self to prepare you of what's to come in the future?
Good question. If I could write to my younger self and tell my younger self anything, I would tell my younger self, know your history, know where you're coming from, know that you come from a people of great accomplishments and achievements. Be self-determining, set up things for yourself, work for yourself, be independent, and support your community and work with with those who want to work with you to see a better world. I would certainly write that, and I would certainly tell my younger self, have no fear of being black. Be a proud African.
That is deep, because you saying that when I was in school, not that I didn't like being black, I just didn't like I don't know. I think maybe I wanted to be like the rest. What was making me different? If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
I'm happy of being black, but I just was, because I was the only black woman in my primary school, girl, I was like, I think once I watched the Roots film, that's when I knew I was different. Up until then, I thought I was the same, as to say. You
Absolutely.
know?
It was about assimilation and trying to fit in.
Yes.
I always say, I say, you're a square trying to fit yourself into a round circle. It don't go.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't
and you
go.
kept pushing yourself to fit, and it still doesn't fit.
Absolutely. And the more you try to push yourself into fit, you're serrating the edges of yourself. You're causing discomfort for yourself. You're causing yourself a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. So whilst you're trying to be accepted by others, the sad thing is that you're not accepting yourself. And in learning how to accept yourself, that's where the real beauty comes. When you start to see the beauty of who you are from the inner person inside, rather than what is on the external trying to inform you and shape you. If you start to see the beauty of who you are inwardly, then you can start to express that outwardly. And then there is no limit to where you can go by working from your own self-approval in who you are. You can only learn by your mistakes and get better, but you don't necessarily need the approval of Europeans to be who you are. And that for me is the strength of loving your black self, loving yourself, every aspect, your nose, your eye, your ears, your hair,
backside, everything, innit?
Your backside, everything, you know, that's it, you know, and coming into that understanding that we were the first people on earth. And scientists, biologists, archaeologists, whatever gist you want to talk about today in modern time, every single one of them will turn around and say, life began in Africa. So when that's telling you that life began in Africa, man originated in Africa, it don't mean the Chinese man, the Indian man, and the white man, they all originated, they was all in Africa at the same time. No. The reality is that there was a time the whole entire planet Earth that we live on was black. The whole entire planet. So all human beings, regardless to who they are or what they look like today, their origin is in the black man and the black woman. And that means the black man and black woman are the mother and father of every living human being on this earth. And when you start to understand that, then you recognize that you are a different kind of human being, and you shouldn't see yourself as some inferior. You're not inferior, you're superior. And because you're superior, it doesn't mean superior means that you go and oppress others. No, superior means that your origin is rooted in the origin of life itself, and that you were the first life force that came into existence, and from that life force came every other life force. And so there's an old time saying, you should honor your mother and father so that your days on the earth may be long. And so you and I, Sister Jazzy, we are coming from the oldest people on this planet. And when we start to understand that you walk in the glory and the beauty of yourself, you don't have to see yourself as less than. You see equal to, and if not more. And that's why I recognize that one of the adages that have kept us in this place where we're in is a mathematical equation, which is called divide and rule. And when you can divide and rule something, then you can have it moving in fractions. And that's what we are moving in fractions. But when you start to understand that who you are and where you come from, you start to become whole again. And we have to start to become whole as male and female. And when we start to become whole as male and female, then we can start to rebuild the family and make it whole. And the family is the basis of community, and community is the basis of nation. And that's what we've got to understand.
I like that. So true. I needed to hear that today. I needed to hear that today. God knows I need to hear that today. Without
beloved, you know, you are much more than what you think you are. That's why we're the most studied people on earth. We are the most studied people on earth.
Yeah.
We do things out of our own natural creative genius. Genius just comes out of us. And everybody is confounded by when they see the genius that come out of us. That's why they study us. You see?
To work it out. Yeah.
And that's why I say the history of us is something that we need to know, because all the things that we get ourselves in that we dominate, whether you talk about sports, we dominate that. No matter what sport it is. And if you even keep us out of the sport and you let us in there for 1 minute, next thing we dominate it.
Yes.
Whether it's
and
golf.
We can make something out of nothing as well.
Nothing. So whether they let us into golf, which is the privileged people's
the privilege.
You know, they allowed Tiger Woods to get into that, and he came out of the woods and then he took over the whole of the golfing thing. They never saw nothing like that in their life. If you talk about tennis, another sport, you allowed you allowed the Williams sisters to come into that. They just took it over completely. And that's not to say anybody else isn't good, but what is in you naturally is what you do naturally. That's the way we are. So whether it's in boxing, we go into the boxing, we dominate that. But they keep us in a lot of those kind of things because it's entertainment.
It's entertainment. But if you look back at with the boxing, I'm not so keen on the boxing anymore, because when you look at it, that's how they had us back in the day. You know, our ancestors were like that. You know,
it was all based on entertainment for Europeans. And that's why you see in the conquering of the world by Europeans, that's why they've gone and conquered Africa, and they take over Africa and then start to create their own industries and manufacturing within those countries. And then the people are poor while they get rich of the mineral resources that keep the Western world going. And that's why Africa, which is the second largest continent on the earth, that with all the minerals and resources that everybody needs, if we took over and took control back of the land, because land is power, because everything that you need to survive comes from the land. Your food comes from the land, your housing comes from the land, your manufacturing comes from the land. Everything you need comes from the land. And so if somebody can make you landless, then they become the power broker, while you then become nothing more than the recipient of whatever it is that they're creating. And that's why I say, when Africans decide that they want to control their destiny and look after themselves for what they need for their own families and future, then we will rule the planet again as we once did.
You can't allow someone to come in your fridge and take out food. That's how I look at it. You cannot, I can't come into your fridge and take out food and go. So how can you go to another country and just take it like that? How? And it's allowed, you know? Well, I don't know. We have to wake up fast.
We do have to wake up fast. And I think we are waking up very fast. And our rise does not necessarily mean the demise of anybody else. It just means we're going to have a new world in a different way, where it will be based on justice, freedom, and equality. And that is what it needs to be. A world based on justice, freedom, and equality, not based on race or any of those things. And so for me, when you and I start to understand those things, then we can start to look at how we invest in one another as male and female, because the first thing we've got to reclaim is the mind.
Yes, you're right. 100% right. Yeah, without a doubt.
And then that way, when we start to reclaim the mind, then we start to see each other in the right way that we should see each other. then I don't just see you as some sex object. You don't just see me as just some physical thing that looked nice because I got a six-pack. And therefore then, you know, all of a sudden now that's what relationship is based upon. It can't work like that, beloved. The woman is the cornerstone. She is the cornerstone of civilization. And if you mistreat the woman, then you're going to have a mistreated and a degraded civilization. But if you elevate the woman, then you're going to have an elevated civilization. You're going to have an elevated life that you're going to live. And we need to have an elevated life.
We must. You see? We can't do this alone. We can't fight this battle alone.
No. And that's why I say understanding ourselves inwardly. Take a personal ownership of who you are. When you start to understand that you as a woman are so valuable, there is no amount of money in the earth that can pay for you. None. Because you bring forth life. And that life, if you've got an elevated, educated, knowledgeable woman, and when I say educated now, you know, that don't mean with certificates and degrees and things like that. I don't mean in that way. When you have an educated woman who loves her black self, loves who she is, understands her physiology, her biology, and what she's made up of and how she brings forth life, then you won't become man's plaything anymore. And then man will recognize that he himself is not somebody's plaything. He is the originator. He is part of the originator of the heavens and the earth. He's a ruler. That's what he's got to learn about his own physiology, biology, chemistry, so that he understands the responsibility that he has to himself and to his woman and to his family. And that is what we've got to come to understand and stop being afraid of ourselves, because sometimes we're afraid to see our own creative genius in ourselves.
Wow.
So that's how I look at it, beloved.
I love it. Wait a minute. I just have to see if I have to go for a break. 1 second, Ubuntu. Hold on tight. Hold on. Let me see. You know, I have to keep it real. So I'm getting to learn it. So in 2 minutes, I'm going on a break. But
I'm working with you.
Ubuntu,
I'm working with you, beloved.
Good. I love it. Look, I've got another I want to ask. No, I'm going to ask you this after. Not yet. There's another question from another listener. They're asking me, what led you down the journey to becoming an essential part of Black youth leadership? Was there a specific reason?
The specific reason, and I can go back from my childhood when I started out working at 16, and I got myself involved in the building trade. I didn't like the way I was treated in the building trade, and I wanted to work for myself. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to work for anybody. I wanted to do things in my own right. And as a youngster coming up, I did set up a little business in woodwork with my best friend at the time, whose name was Junior Brown. And we called our organization at that time JD Kitchen Fitters. Why pay more when you can pay less? And we would fit kitchens into people's houses because we did kitchen fitting.
What age were you when you done that? What age?
I was about 19, 20.
That's real 21. Good, you know, to have known at that age, to have done that, you know, that's really good.
Yeah, because you see, even within the working place at that time, there was racist practices that I experienced. And, you know, I fought back because I wasn't one to sit down there and let nobody take no liberty with me in that kind of way. And as a 16-year-old, when I got into my apprenticeship in woodwork, I remember I did something wrong, and the foreman was supposed to be there supervising me, and he left me, and I got something wrong. And when I got something wrong, he came and shamed me in front of the whole of the people in the workplace. And when he shamed me, I lost it. And when I lost it, if it wasn't for another brother that was working there, he came and grabbed me and took me away and said to me, no, don't go down that road. And that same foreman that I'm talking about. His name was Peter Watkins. The funny thing, I've got to jump back to really get that part right. When I started my apprenticeship, they sent me to go and be a trainee estimator. That's where you had careers office. And so they sent me to they sent me to a place called Victoria Joinery to become a trainee estimator. And I met this man at 16. His name was Jack Newstead. And when I went and met him in the office, he said to me, son, you don't want to be a trainee estimator. You'll be in the office, it's hot and sticky, and you won't like it. But follow me over into the yard. And he showed me these big machines that made door frames, window frames, kitchens, and all kinds of things. And I saw that as a 16-year-old, and I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And I then went and signed my apprenticeship for 3 years. And when I signed that apprenticeship, I went back to my mum and my bigger brother. And I said to my bigger brother, this is what the man told me, that I don't need to be a trainee estimator. I need to be working there as a woodworker. My brother said to me, they tricked you. What they did is tricked you from working as a trainee estimator, because if you'd have become a trainee estimator in the building trade, you would have been earning money. And that's not what they wanted to do. So I went back to the workplace and I said to Mr.
Hold it there, Ubuntu. I'm going to go on another break and I'll be back, yes?
All right, I'm with you, sis. I'm with you.
Okay. All right. Please. Oh, dear. Okay. Welcome back, Ubuntu. Don't worry, I'll get perfect at this streaming. Oh, it's been a joy already speaking to you. It's been so enriching, you know, such an enriching.
You asking me the questions is bringing up a whole load of things. So that's why I'm enjoying the questions, because sometimes you can't remember everything, but it brings back certain things. So in terms of the person who asked the question, I went and told my brother about me going to be the trainee estimator and what the man Jack Newstead said to me that ended me up becoming a woodworker. And when my brother told me that, I went back to the workplace and I said to them, 3 years to the day of me signing this contract, 3 years to the day I will be leaving this place. And 3 years to the day I left. And the day that I was leaving, I gave them problems, man. I gave them headaches. I made their head hurt them down there. And the day that I was leaving, 3 years to the day, Peter Watkins took me into the office. This was a white foreman. And he said to me, we built up a relationship over the years and we got better. At first, I didn't like him. He never necessarily liked me, but we got better as the years went on. And the day that I was leaving, he called me into the office and he said to me, son, the best thing that you could do is go out into the big wide world and find out what's going on. And I took him up and I went out into the big wide world to find out what was going on. And then once I started to understand what was going on as the years went on, then I started to understand myself even better. So yes, to the person who posed the question, yes, from a very early age, you know, experiencing racism, what we will call it now, and the discrimination that was going on at that time. I knew it. As I said, I grew up in a time where there was National Front. I knew there was something different between us and them. So those things carried on with me right up until this present day that we're living in now.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Ubuntu, I got some nice open questions to give you. Something to be a bit lighthearted. Right, I want you to choose. I mean, that's been beautiful, but we need to shake it off a bit now, you know? Be a little bit more happier.
Well, you know, there's that old saying, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine to go down. So, you know.
Man, it's true enough. So I've got, a bit of laughter and a bit of happiness in this dreary time of life, you know?
What, this COVID-19, absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah, that will be another topic, Ubuntu. Trust me, that'll be another topic for us, you know? But I've conjured these 5 questions. One of them doesn't appeal to you, so I'm going to take this out.
Okay.
So I want you to choose 2 questions out of my 4. 1, 2, 3. I've got 4, and I want you to choose 2. So from 1 to 5, excluding number 4. There's no number 4 for you. So you can either have 1, 2, 3, or 5. Choose your first one. What number?
You know what? I'll start off with number 3, because number 3 is significant in terms of if at first you don't succeed, try again. Try again.
Okay. All right. Number 3 is this. What piece of information do you remember when you was growing up? And how has it hindered you, or did you learn from it?
What piece of information? Boy.
What piece of information? Yeah.
If I tell you something that has stood with me for the rest of my life was the passing of my dad.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's a good thing. It's not a sad thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah. Okay. Elaborate then. Elaborate.
It's a good thing. My dad came from work. Yeah, my dad came from work to come and take my mum to work in the morning. And my dad never came into my bedroom. He came into my bedroom and he said to me, when he was going to take my mum to work, he said to me, would you like me to give it to you in the way how he delivered it, or would you like me to convert it into English?
What did you say?
He said to me, son, make me tell you something. You no better try kill work in a Britain, because Britain work will kill you and still there for somebody else to do it. And I was just turning 17. And then he walked through the door and he never came back again because he had a heart attack and died. But that which he told me stayed with me to this very day. So I don't see it as something sad. I see it as something, as a piece of information that is being translated from father to son. That my father could see something that was so valuable for him to tell his son, so that his son would go down that road. And I've taken that stuff wholeheartedly.
Wow, that is deep. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. I appreciate that. So you got another one out of, so you've done number 3. Let me just tick number 3. So you've got either number 1, 2, or 5. Ooh.
Okay. Let's go.
And I made these up myself. Right. You want number 2?
Let's go to number 2.
Number 2. Okay, Mr. Ubuntu, you want number 2? You sure?
Okay. Yeah, let's go for number 2.
Okay, number 2 is, what are you scared of?
What am I scared of?
Yeah, what are you scared of?
I would turn around and tell you, based on what I've understood in terms of myself and life in itself, and what life brings. I'm afraid of man nor beast.
Oh, that is an answer and a half. I thought you was going to say like a spider, because I was scared of spiders, but you're afraid of man nor beast. Let me just mull that in my head a moment. Hold on.
Well, let me add to it.
Yeah,
so that it will come give another flavor.
Yes.
So I remember as a youngster, you have the Fox and Firkin in Catford.
Yeah,
that we run in a particular kind of way. You used to have a lot of National Front people used to go to that Fox and Firkin.
Oh, is it?
That we used to have to run for our life when we passed there to get home. And then you've got the little cemetery just as you on the right hand side as you cross the traffic lights. And we ran across that cemetery, and I ran all the way home. And I told my dad how we were chased by National Front, and we ran through the cemetery. And my dad said to me, son, have no fear of the dead, because the dead can't do you nothing. It's the living.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I like that answer. I liked it so much that you need to have one more question for me like that.
All right.
So you've answered number 2 and you've answered number. I want you to answer. Yeah. Anyway, so you either got 1 or number 5.
1 or number 5.
Yes.
I've answered 2, 3.
2 and 3. Yeah.
All right,
4 doesn't apply to you.
1. I'm going to leave number 1. Number 5.
You're going to go for number 5?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ubuntu. Number 5 is this. Natural hair or not natural hair, and why? So all the listeners out there, whatever you choose, you need to give me your why.
Natural
Maybe it's
hair,
both.
Without a doubt.
Give us the steps why. Give us the steps why.
The reason why.
Because some people out there are not enjoying having their natural hair. So maybe you'll be able to enlighten, you know?
Enjoy our natural hair because we're in an environment that we've got to conform to fit in. And so in trying to conform to fit in, we will do what it takes to try and ease the pressure off whilst we got to go into those environments, having our hair in different ways so that it's a little bit more acceptable. But in terms of natural hair, for me, I love the styles that you can do with natural hair. And when you look at some of our ancient African sisters and some of the way that they used to braid their hair and do the different styles, and they can really do it in different ways. And some of those hairstyles have different meanings. And, you know, I love it. I love that stuff. I love when our sister can do up their hair in a natural way and style it in a natural way, whether it's an afro, whether it's in plaits, China bump, or you want to do it in intricate styles. I love all of that stuff. It makes you stand out. It really puts you in a different place. Regality, I love it.
Regality. Let me write that down. I like that word. I have to nick it. So that's all my questions. Yeah, that is my questions that I've asked you. So for the last half an hour-ish, is there anything else you would like to bring to the table, as to say? Firstly, I want to thank you ever so much, Ubuntu, for waking up early to coming onto this platform and, you know, spreading the love and sharing your knowledge with us, because I needed it as much as other people out there that need it as well. I needed it like no one's business.
Beloved, you know? I think all of us need it, and all of us to stop being afraid of being who we are. And I think the more we accept who we are through knowledge, not allowing someone else to determine what it is that they think is appropriate in order for them to accept us. But we must first learn to accept ourselves. We are beautiful, man. We are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We have just been miseducated, and because we've been miseducated,
bastardized as well. That's a beautiful word, bastardized. You know,
And there's a
with the
there's a
TV,
saying,
with this, that.
yes, there's a saying, he who prescribes the circumference of your education. Wait, let me make sure I get it right. He who prescribes the diameter of your education controls the circumference of your thinking.
Wow. And that can be just a small amount.
Absolutely, beloved. So yes, in that sense, my thing is, it's love yourself, man. We are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I just want to share with you another thing that I hope your listeners can go out and look and purchase. If you can go out and
share it, share everything, Ubuntu, share everything.
Yeah, by this brother named Robin Walker. And the book is called When We Ruled.
Let me write it myself as well. When We Ruled.
I want us to understand that there was a time, as I said earlier on in our conversation, our people ruled the planet. We did rule. So I want us to understand and look at that beautiful black sister on the front.
Isn't it?
Yeah. That's beautiful
the one.
Black sister on the front of that book. She was a ruler. And that's what we want our sisters to know, that you're a ruler, but you're a ruler in understanding and knowing your whole physical, your whole biological, your whole chemical self. Understand who you are so that you're not man's plaything. Our ancient ancestors were nobody's plaything. We learned to love, we learned to share, we learned to care. That's the beautiful thing about that book. And for yourself, beloved, because we live in Lewisham, in England, we should know this book, which is another beautiful book written by a sister by the name of Joan Anim Adu, and it's called The Longest Journey, A History of Black Lewisham.
Wow. Joan Ann. Fab. Imagine that. I've been living here for how long and didn't know all these things were here.
Yeah. So that's there. I'm trying to give this all to you so that by the time we finish, you've got enough things that you can go away. People can go away and study.
It's research. Yes.
Here's another one by a man named Anthony Browder. It's called The Nile Valley Civilization.
The Nile Valley Civilization.
Yep. While we're in the lockdown in COVID times, and you can go and get these books, whether you can get them online, get them delivered to your house. Sit down and empower your mind while you've got some time. Learn, read. Our ancestors were the first to write. We were the first writers in civilization. We were the fathers and the mothers of mathematics. So, we shouldn't be frightened of reading or learning. And then you've got this beautiful book here by Walter Rodney.
Rodney. And what's that called? Something Europe of Africa?
How Europe underdeveloped Africa. It gives you an insight in how Africa got underdeveloped in order for the Western world to develop.
Wow.
So those are some books that I think is good for us to read.
Yes.
And don't forget this one here.
Yeah, this one.
100 amazing facts about the Negro.
100 amazing facts about the Negro. Okay.
One of the things that I'd like to do before we leave, I'd just like to read.
We've still got half an hour. We still got half an hour, so keep coming, man.
I want to read a little piece.
Yes.
From this, because I want us to even understand that the medical profession that we have now, they take us through what you call the Hippocratic Oath. Hippocrates was Greek, and he studied in ancient Egypt to learn about medicine. And in medicine, within the medical field, the adage is do no harm. You would think that Hippocrates, who was a European, and he was Greek, because if you look where Greece is on a map, it's just across from Africa. So.
Okay. 1 second. We're going to go, hold that. We're just going to go on a break and then we're going to come back. Yeah.
I'm holding
okay.
it. I'm holding it.
Hold on. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Ubuntu. Thank you for your time once again. I appreciate you very, very much. And I'm looking forward to hearing your piece now.
Beloved, just to share with the listeners, we spoke about Hippocrates being the father of medicine, who was Greek.
Yes.
He studied in what we call ancient Egypt, and he learned what he learned in Egypt. And Egypt is in Africa. And Africa is where a lot of the Europeans, where you will hear the history about Cleopatra and all of those great ancestors that we have. He studied in ancient Egypt. And Hippocrates is, as I said, they give him in Europe, they call him the father of medicine. But he will say that he learned what he learned in Egypt, which is Black Africa. So I want to read a little bit about Hippocrates and what he did. But I want to read and tell you about who is the real father of medicine. And his name is Imhotep. It says here, Imhotep of ancient Egypt was the real father of medicine. He lived about 2300 BC. Greece and Rome had their knowledge of medicine from him. In Rome, he was worshipped as the Prince of Peace in the form of a black man. His Ethiopian portrait shows him a Negro. Imhotep, also prime minister to King Zosa, as well as the foremost architect of time, the saying, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die," had been traced to him. Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine, lived 2000 years ago after Imhotep. So Hippocrates came 2000 years after Imhotep had gone and died.
Right.
So they learned what they learned from Black Africa in terms of medicine, brought it back to Europe, and then they put their stamp on it to say it was them that did it. And that is a man by the name of Imhotep. Don't forget him.
And the thing is, I've heard this word being bandied around, but I never understood once again what it meant. So, okay, Imhotep, I-M-O-T-E-P, I think is spelled, isn't it? Imhotep.
And I'll show you a quick picture of Imhotep from this book, Nile Valley Civilization. That's the man there sitting down there. He was the father of medicine. And he built what you call the first step pyramid that was the first stone structure anywhere on earth at that time. He was an architect, a grand vizier. He was a prime minister to the ruler of that time, and his name was King Zosa. So that's
King
the man
Zosa.
there. That's the man there. Him right here. His name is Imhotep. You've seen them make films of
yeah, I've seen
called The Mummy.
But I just didn't understand. Gosh.
Yes,
and the way you just don't understand things, huh?
Oh well, this is why they turn things around. They've got him in a film called The Mummy, but he's a light-skinned man in The Mummy, running around doing evil things and looking kind of. But that's not the truth. That's Europeans making a film for entertainment about ancient Egypt, and that's why even to this day, the name Egypt, when you hear it, which his proper name is Kemet. That's his proper name.
Kemet.
His name, his proper name is Kemet. So that could be spelled K-E. That could be K-H-M-E-T or K-E-M-E-T. Its proper name is Kemet.
So Egypt's name is Kemet.
Yeah, its proper name is Kemet. Egypt is a name given it to it by Greece. The Greeks named it Egypt. That's why it's called Egypt. And we still hear it. But the moment you hear the name Egypt in any country in the world that you hear the name Egypt, everybody knows that name. Why? Because it's one of the most spoken of civilizations that we had in Africa that Europeans engaged with. We had many different civilizations all over the continent of Africa. It wasn't just Egypt, but because of where Greece and Rome are located geographically on the map, you can see it's just across the way from Africa. And so they all knew about Africa and heard about Africa at that time. And some of them went into Africa. Some of them actually went in and started causing trouble in Africa and caused a lot of problems in that region of the world. And you can move from where you called Egypt, going south, going up, you will go into what you call the Sudan.
Yes.
And if you look in Sudan, whilst they've got pyramids in Egypt, I think they have something over 110 pyramids in Egypt. In the Sudan, they have more pyramids in the Sudan, which is Black Africa.
Yeah.
That's how you would look at it. So you add that as a point where it went up into the Sudan, and these were family. These were family. So when you talk about ancient Egypt, you're talking about the Sudan, Ethiopia, going right up Kush, all of those kind of things. The name Kush is an old name for what you will call the Kushites and those kind of people who used to eat. Yes. So you have those
I've heard of this in my years before, but I just I
want to show you the lady that I showed you on the cover of that book, When We Ruled. That lady there, her name is Queen Tai. Queen Tai. That's the name of that lady. And I'm going to read you a quick little bit about Queen Tai.
Yes.
Here she is again in the book.
Oh, she's,
That's her there. And
she's beautiful.
And
real black and beautiful. Real shiny black and beautiful.
I'm telling you, beautiful.
Yeah.
So it says here, Queen Tai represents an attempt by some to dissociate African people from Egypt history. Queen Tai was the wife of Amenhotep III and the mother of Amenhotep IV, who is what you would call Akhenaten. Akhenaten was the man who brought in that concept of one God. That's where that concept of one God. And so it says here, the photo above is a popular image of her, which clearly illustrates her African features. That same lady, her son was Akhenaten, and Akhenaten's son is one of the ones that you know in the world that is quite famous, and we've all heard of that man by the name of Tutankhamun.
Oh, right, okay.
So That's who you're looking
so that's
at.
the dad. Okay.
Yes. Akhenaten is his father, and
Akhenaten to Carmen. Ah.
yes. So that's where
Look at that.
So that's why
That's really blown me away. Wow.
Green tie. And if you go out into the British History Museum, you might even find them have things of Tutankhamun in there, the boy king who was buried in gold. So we never just throw our people down in the ground like how you see us throw us down in the ground now. No, man.
Yeah.
Those our ancestors were buried in refinery, beloved. Refinery.
That's
so sometimes
deep,
you might wonder why we like gold, because gold was things that we wore. We had it in our clothes. We had it as part and parcel of us. So, you know, understand gold has a great relationship to us. And nothing more than people came into Africa to come and steal the gold, take gold from us, and all of those things. And hence why you have people like the great King Mansa Musa, round about the 13th century, who made a trip from Mali to Mecca in order to do pilgrimage and have Hajj at Mecca. And as he was traveling, he had over 60,000 people with him, and animals carrying gold. And as he got into Cairo, he handed out big chunks of gold at that time. And when you're talking around the 13th century, bringing history a bit closer, when you're talking about the 13th century, well, 13th century, our brothers and sisters on that particular part of the world, they were big doing things. And Europeans heard about places like Mali and Timbuktu, because places like Timbuktu, people were coming there to learn.
I thought Timbuktu was a made-up word. You know, I used to hear it. I think when my mum used to curse me and say something Timbuktu, I never knew that actually existed until you got older, you know?
Yes, Timbuktu, where people traveled there to learn and sit at the feet of our ancestors to learn about the sciences, the cosmos, what was going on in the universe, mathematics, all of those kind of things. Timbuktu was a great civilization, and Mali. And so when we talk about people like King Mansa Musa, he gave away so much gold when he got into Cairo on his way to Mecca that it destabilized the economy of Cairo for 10 years because he gave away gold. And that's the beauty of some of the historical narratives around our people. So yes, I hope that beloved was informative and give some benefit to your listeners.
Is it another break? One second, Ubuntu. I can't hear now.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I don't know what's happened here.
I think it's break.
Have they done it? I can't hear. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can you hear me, Ubuntu? Can you hear?
I can hear you. I can hear you, beloved.
I can't hear you. How comes I can't hear you? It's so.
I don't know.
It's gone low, yeah. And I don't know how to turn this up now, you know. Right, let me just. Okay, 1 sec. Let me see. I'm just gonna write to. I can't hear.
I can hear you.
You can hear me. I can't hear you one bit. I can't hear. I'm just writing to the station manager. 1 second, please. I just written to them to see. I still can't hear you. How bizarre. Do I sound clear to you? I have to listen like this to you.
Yes, you sound clear to me.
I don't know what's happened.
You sure you haven't muted yourself?
I don't know. I just have to.
Have you muted yourself at all?
1 second. Let me just. Oh Lord. Private chat. Right. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? You can hear. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to turn the mic off and turn it back on and see what happens.
Okay.
No, it's still faint.
Really?
Right. Okay. Ubuntu, because of that, I don't know what's happened. I can't hear you. So tinny. I'm gonna thank you and send you so much love, and I'm so grateful for your time today. So I have had to cut you a bit short because I can't hear you very well. They might have to do something at the station there. I hope you'll join me back again at another time with more information. I'll be very grateful. It's been a joy. Again, thank you from my heart for your time. And it's been interesting. And I've written down everything in my book. I've written all the names down and everything. Look. And it's been a joy. You've really empowered my brain today and everything. You really have. It's just been lovely.
Thank you.
Your time and your knowledge has been great. And I can't wait to meditate on it as well, you know?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh. So because I can't hear you, I'm going to love you from my heart and thank you so much, Ubuntu. Thank you ever so much. And until again, I'll be in touch again because you need to come back again until I'm well overloaded with information.
No problem.
Thank you so much. You take care and have a great day. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye, love. Take care. Bye.